sure, no problem. Because I've been just put in 1,000 hours cutting this maple, you know, with my knife here. So I knew nothing of violin building, nothing at all. Approximately 5 days later, I bring him back this plate that I had completely carved with this knife, and it was quite, just from his amazement that I could do that so quickly with no equipment and knowing nothing about violins. I guess through just how I received what he was sending me, you know, those signals, I thought, well, maybe there's something in this. It wasn't really that hard, you know? Like, where's the hard part of this? Well, I can say 18 months later, I found the hard part. There's no book written that will tell you, there's books written that will tell you how to build one. But there's not a book written that will tell you why this goes here, or how it works. There's theories of how it works. But the science that was used to create these some 400 years ago was lost. And it was a science based not on our Western type science that we know today, not of all the physics I was reading. They knew science from, the science of the day was alchemy. Like I say, Newton hadn't even been born, who was the father of calculus, from which stem most of our Western physics, you know, Einstein's, I mean, everything. I chose a maker who preceded, for example, Stradivarian. Everybody was making Stradivarians. I knew I didn't want to make a Stradivarian. What was being produced today were pretty well perfect replicas of Stradivarians, and everybody was making them. Stradivarians or Guarnaris. These two are today considered the standard violins and the best that were ever built by today's standards. You start with a plate like this particular one. Again, with my knife, I'll start and I'll just start carving it down. Because I've been carving for so long, I have a lot of strength in my hands, and that's probably why I can cut through this stuff with not much problem. I use this knife like, I guess, an artist would use a pen or a pencil. All my detailing work at the end, though, I've been using this knife. I use a knife from start to finish for everything. You know, it's the perfect, it's amazing. It's a square knife, flat, but it's perfect for making all the spheres it's got all the right, and I'm not quite sure this is, if he did use a knife originally, it looked like this, because this just happens to fit every one of the arcs. When you look at a block like this, you really can't see the plate that's in there. I knew that inside this plate, this block of wood, there's a sliver, like this one. This was this a week ago. I had another two of them. But this comes out of the center of this somewhere, in a particular place, in a particular plane. So you can't see it by looking at, I can't look at this and see that plane in there. It's impossible. And I'm a firm believer in it's the journey that gives you the answers. If you sit here and look at it, you'll never see it. You got to get going. The more you take away, the more you see. The closer you get, the more evident it becomes. It's like walking down the street. I can look at the clock tower from here, and I know what it looks like, basically. But if I go down 2 blocks and take another look at it, well, I have a different perspective of it, and I see more detail. But I can't sit here and imagine what it looks like from York Street. I mean, I physically got to go there. The same way as this, you physically have to go somewhere in order to get closer to the end product to see it. And it's that kind of process of just getting closer and closer until you're at the final form. And once you're there, then the fun begins. Then the hard part begins. Like the old 80-20 law. It takes like 20% of your time to get it from this to this, and then now 80% of your time will be from this to something that looks just like this. But the difference is so fine that it either makes a violin or it doesn't make a violin. All the notes through 4 octaves can be reproduced on this plate. This plate starts on A, which is in the middle of the violin, the string, the A string. And from the A string forward, you will get each note can be reproduced on this bottom plate. Up to the A string, you have, again, the 4 octaves cut in four. So what you have basically here is an E note in length that's going to break up into 4 quadrants, each being an E, but with, like for example, A440, your next A is A220. It's perfect ratios of numbers. A string will break up into a ratio, into precise ratios. These plates break up into the same ratios, except now it's not a string you're dealing with, it's a flat surface, but it still acts in the same way as the string does. Now when I put the purfling in around here, it acts as more or less a band on a drum, and will increase the flexibility of the plate. Once I start cutting that in, the resonance will start to sustain longer. I generally stop at about 6 cycles of the note. So with the bottom in an A and the top as the top plate as an E, then I'll show you on here. The actual top plate is the lowest note that will be required from that string. And its lowest note will encompass the whole plate itself will vibrate. As you go up the string, then different sections come into play. A lot of the sound you hear off these violins is based mostly on resonances as opposed to vibrations as such. The vibrations will come just with the lower overtones of the notes. After you reach from the center of the note, if you will, the higher up the carrying power of the note is, its energy is derived from the resonances that occur. This wood will go into resonance at a certain frequency, which is based on these strings. The more you play the instrument, at first, for the first year or so, the wood will settle, the glue will settle, it'll find its final balance, if you will. And as that is happening, the tone is increasing as it goes along. Nothing I'd like to do better for the rest of my life than to just make violins. I know I'm 40 now, so I may only have, if I can make 50 of them in my lifetime, that's about all I could make. But that would be quite an accomplishment for me. They're giving me a great sense of self pride in what I've done. I've done all other carvings and built other things, but nothing has sustained me as long as the violin has.
Thank you for this up here. This way. Start by doing that. Anyways, and take my little knife here and go around. Little incisions, you know. As long as I stay relatively within range right now, I'm okay. I don't wanna go too far outside of range. Let's check this back. Like so. Yeah, my hands are back in shape now. Let's get rid of this. Where am I? On the board here. Let's see. Fucking everything's backwards. Push like fucking hell. Only once this slipped. And I went right in my hand. One time. Long time ago. And I started to try gloves. And you carve the gloves on. That didn't work. Puncture-proof gloves, they weren't too puncture-proof. So, you just learn to keep your hands out of the way. They gotta work together. Harmony. Right hand, left hand, all the time. Right hand, left hand, or left hand. I got a nut, see. Credit.